Dr. Hochman, a medical matchmaker. As a family medicine physician and huge physician advocate, I help doctors to find the jobs of their dreams. Hello, this is Dr. Hochman here. I'm a practicing family medicine physician and the medical matchmaker. I help match physicians with physician-owned private practices where we can really enjoy practicing medicine again. And throughout that process, I'll help with interview preparation, evaluating all the different offers, a little bit of contract negotiation, a lot of contract negotiation when it gets down to the nitty-gritty. I like to refer to our friendly lawyers. But I definitely do help with that and just kind of framing how to word that for sure. Because I bring the knowledge from both the physician side and the practice side without being the practice or the physician. It always helps to have someone who's a little bit removed from the process. So today we are speaking with Michael Johnson. I'm going to hand it over to you so you can introduce yourself.
Sure. Always enjoy chatting with you. I feel like we have so many fun offline chats and online chats. I'm glad to be back. My name is Michael Johnson. I'm a lawyer. I help physicians evaluate, negotiate, and sometimes enforce physician contracts. And I help first contract physicians. I help physicians transitioning between physicians early to mid-career. I help physicians just understand what their contracts mean for their life. You know, a lot of times we end up diving into the details of like, what does this clause mean or what does that clause mean? It's really important for physicians just understand what different contracts mean for their life plan, for their career, how you navigate them, how do you potentially get out of them if you really needed to. My law firm, Michael Johnson Legal, we help physicians understand and negotiate these deals.
Thank you. And I'll put a plug in for Michael. He's not just a lawyer, and he's not just a lawyer who works with physicians. He actually cares about us. And we're going to talk a little bit about his story and how that leads into why you do what you do and how you do it. And I think it's so valuable for physicians to see, a lot of the same struggles and how people have dealt with them. So why don't we start with your story here?
Yeah.
Michael calls it, what do you call it? Killing move that you did.
Yeah. So we'll get a little personal today. I'll share some personal finance stuff, just some of the financial realities that we've had to deal with. My wife is a physician. She's a psychiatrist. She went out of state for medical school and residency. We met in New Orleans on Magazine Street for all the New Orleans fans out there. We went and saw Irvin Mayfield and had some chicken and waffles on our first date. For all the New Orleans fans out there, they'll know what's up with that. But we met right before she started residency. And then we spent her 4 years through residency together. We got married during her PGY2 year. And then after residency, we moved to where she's from, North Shore of Milwaukee. So moving from New Orleans to Milwaukee, that was right at the beginning of COVID, the first COVID summer. So we met in 2016, moved COVID summer of 2020. And then now Allie is, I guess, starting her 4th year after training, so 3 years down. So yeah, I just wanted to share some of like the personal financial realities of like what happens in the first 3 years after you finish residency. A big thing for us was our student loan debt. Not a lot of people like to say like what their number is. Sometimes it's very like almost like asking you like, hey, what does your underwear smell like? Oh, like I don't know that I really want to do that, but I would like, at least internally, at least in couples, at least with your lawyers or your mentors, to kind of bring this to the forefront, because for a lot of my clients, it's like the thing that they're most afraid to tell me about. Sometimes during initial consults, I kind of have to ask a couple times, like, hey, we kind of need to know this because it factors into what you do with your career and how contracts match your personal finance realities, that sort of thing. And some folks are just really nervous to talk about it. So I'll share mine. Allie finished with 435. And I went to private law school. I love Tulane, by the way. Loved my law school experience, but paying full boat for private law school was a terrible financial decision. Like, that is a lot of money for a law degree, and frankly, it's a bit challenging alone to resolve. But it's at 285. It's been paused during COVID. So combined, we're at, I believe that's $720,000, dual professional couple, medicine and law. That's a lot of money, and for us, just the reality of that, as a psychiatrist and a lawyer. I'm also a small private practice lawyer. I'm not Harvey Specter out here. Like, are you watching Suits by any chance?
No, I'm not.
Okay. A lot of people watching Suits right now, they'll know that reference. Like, this isn't like, Pearson Hardiman right now. Like, it's a small private practice. So we do fine, but it's not like New York City big law type numbers. And my wife is a psychiatrist. They're doing very well now, but not the highest paid specialty. So the reality of paying off $720,000 with post-tax earnings, okay, unfortunately paying down student loans is not done pre-tax. So let's say combined, Allie and I might make, even in like the 500 range, 600 range as a couple, even if we get that high, hasn't always been that high, but even if we get that high, that's tax first. And then we'd have to pay off student loans. So your typical tax burden as an employed person on 500 is going to approach 40%. Maybe in Texas for you, it's a little bit less without the state income taxes, but that's a lot. So 500 turns into 300 like that, really, before it hits your bank account. And then now trying to pay off 700 with 300, and then there's interest expenses, that sort of thing. For us, it really drove the decision regarding Allie's practice setting and where she was going to practice for the first few years. She did her residency at a residency program that qualified for public service loan forgiveness. So had 4 years of service towards her 10-year public service loan forgiveness commitment. For those that don't know what PSLF is, if it's a government program that provides student loan forgiveness for whatever is left over if you work for a qualifying employer full-time for 10 years. Now, full-time can be usually about a 0.8 FTE, at least 30 hours a week on average. There's some like very important nuances, details there. But for us, the reality was, okay, we could get $435-ish thousand of forgiveness, probably reduced a little bit based on required minimum monthly payments, but we could get a significant amount of forgiveness through public service loan forgiveness. When you factor in taxes, paying off about $435 with post-tax earnings would be about the equivalent of about a $700,000 pre-tax, like kind of like a massive retention bonus that's paid by the government, which is
plus
wild.
The interest that accrues over time while you're trying to pay them off.
Right. So then it's going to grow more. So like the reality was that it made a lot of sense for that. She's in a place that she really, really likes right now. So fortunately, it's not an issue, but the student loan realities really pushed her towards either an academic position or a position with a larger employer that was a nonprofit that qualified for public service loan forgiveness. It made her pursuing independent physician-owned private practice under those financial realities a bit more challenging. Now, had it been a little bit different, if I had $0 of loans and if I was earning Harvey Specter type money, then I don't know, maybe like the finances were different. So I would encourage folks that are either dual physician couples, dual professional couples, folks that have two sets of loans, that sort of thing, to do the math and kind of approach it from a very realistic perspective. What are my options with PSLF? What are not? I see little caveat to this. Most of the clients that I have are more likely to be leaving academics and leaving larger employers for smaller independent physician-owned private practices. That's a very, very, very clear trend. So if it's anywhere like feasible, I very much encourage physicians to choose that practice setting. But I do run into some folks like our personal financial situation where, it would be very challenging to do that. We could go for the SAVE plan that requires 25 years of service, but that would also probably require us to hold on to those loans for about 25 years and pay kind of ongoing interest and minimum monthly payments for a really long time. If Allie wanted to pursue private practice, then that might be a reality for us, and that was a little bit difficult to explore. But I'd love to hear your thoughts on that, I guess, in starting salvo, if you will, about student loans and kind of first contract decisions.
Yeah, I have so many thoughts. I mean, I don't really even know where to go from there. One of the things if you're taking it purely from a financial standpoint, one of the discussions that I typically will have with the physicians that I work with is looking at their student loans, which, since everyone's sharing here, I'll tell you, most of the doctors I speak with do have between $300,000 and $500,000 of student loan debt. That's the big number that I see. I was fortunate. I'm older than I look, so medical school was not quite as expensive when I went, luckily. But that's a very realistic number. And so when I talk about those numbers, we calculate, what are the payments that you're going to be making every month, and what salary would you be earning at an FQHC or an institution that qualifies for loan repayment? And then how does that compare to another setting? Because if the salary is that much higher at the setting and you'll be happier, it's a no-brainer.
Sure.
So it's not just about saying, okay, my loans will be forgiven, but we also talk about if I don't go the loan repayment route and I take the other route, what's the salary difference? What does that equate to after taxes? And how equitable is that financially speaking? The other thing we speak about is living below your means. So, when you get those golden handcuffs, you're stuck to that big salary, or you're stuck to something. So, I'm curious to hear what you guys do with your monumental amount of loan debt.
Yeah, so I will say the practice setting and like the realities within your specialty can change this dynamic quite a bit. Right now in psychiatry, a lot of larger institutions, larger employers, mega health, mega hospitals are paying quite a bit for psychiatry, sometimes even to the tune of a loss. So for psychiatrists, this math kind of pushes a lot more towards PSLF eligible employers, but a lot of like primary care practices that are run very well, and if you're a part owner of that practice, it pays you a premium over what the PSLF eligible option is. Also, a lot of like primary care docs did 3 years of training instead of 4 or 5 or 6 years of training, so they have 7 years of the payback provision like period at a higher salary compared to like someone who maybe was a specialist and did 2 fellowships and only has 24 months left, and they'll get $500K forgiven in 24 months. A lot of times for those folks, it's like, look, 2 years, $500K, like that's a lot of money.
Yeah.
Like it's going to be hard to match up. Maybe you do this in 2 years. But for a lot of my pediatricians, family practice docs, looking at that math, it can create kind of an interesting discussion from a purely financial position. We also obviously have to separate the financial from what do you want to do with your career and your life. That's a very separate discussion, and they obviously are intertwined, and I'm very, very comfortable recommending folks make a decision on what's best for you. But part of that is also knowing the realities of personal finances. But some personal finance decisions that we made that were very helpful, was buying low on house. A lot of first contract, especially if you're moving away from where you trained, or you're moving to a place where you've never lived before, or whether you don't have like community ties, I encourage folks to say like, hey, look, maybe wait a year to buy a house. Like maybe just make sure you're in the place that you're meant to be in. Okay. Also, like, I'm curious if you've gotten to this, but young couples that haven't had kids yet, and like all the grandparents are in one place, but they want to move somewhere else, and they're looking at having a family. And we dealt with that, and we had our first kid. Allie was in PGY 4 year, August of 2019, and it hit us very, very quickly how helpful it would be to have family like very close by, like down the street. So that was one of the reasons that we wanted to move from New Orleans to Milwaukee and be very close to family. But some of those just personal decisions can affect where you want to live. But with that, I think buying low on house, like right out of the gate, can be super helpful. We moved to the Midwest where like housing is much lower than like probably what you're seeing in Austin. Like, oh, that'd be rough. And some of like places in the Northeast where you just can't find a 6-figure house, like it almost has to be a 7-figure house, that can be really, really tough, right? But for us, we found a very comfortable home that, it's under 2,000 square feet. So we're not in like a doctor home, we're not in some massive house, but we're very comfortable here. And we ended up buying for $367,000, which is like very low compared to most, like the realities of most local markets right now. So we ended up getting a 15-year loan, just because there wasn't that big of a gap between the 30-year and the 15-year when we looked at it. It was like right at the low point in the market, like at the end of 2021, where we refinanced for 2.05% on a 15-year loan. Like, that's I'm never amazing. Gonna be able to leave this house because the interest rates now are like triple that. Like, what am I supposed to do? I'm curious if you guys took advantage of that, or some of the realities
we
of like.
Definitely did.
Yeah.
Well, we bought our house, I call it on discount because it had been sitting for a while. So
nice. Yeah, we did that. We bought low on house. Even with the 15-year, we like our total monthly payments with everything roped in is like right under $2,900 a month. So that's our housing. And just from like a monthly perspective, having housing that low has given us so many other options just with personal finances to determine, what we wanted to do. Like for me, we had, so also a thing about us, we have a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old. So when we moved, we had a 1-year-old and Allie was soon to be pregnant. And during that period, it's really hard for 2 people to work full time. Like, it's really challenging. Even if that is your plan at the moment, you might want some option to flex out of that for a period. You might want at least having the option. Okay, I talked to a lot of couples that say, yeah, well, our plan is to continue working. It's like, okay, well, we want to make sure that you at least have the option to adjust if that's what makes the most sense at that time. I don't know that it was necessarily our plan for me to step back for a period to kind of navigate that very early infant stage. But that's what we did. So in August of 2019, when my son was born, we were looking at daycare options, and it was pretty rough. Like, I was practicing in a great firm downtown with the 40th floor view of the Mississippi River in New Orleans, and there was like beautiful art on the wall. It's a great place. I still love like the practice setting, and I loved all the people that I worked with and had great mentors there, and I loved it. But just the reality of practicing in that setting made it difficult. We couldn't really find a place that we felt confident that either me or Allie would be able to pick up our kid from daycare every day. We just couldn't really find it. So kind of out of necessity, I started a solo law practice literally 3 days before my kid was born. Really signed my first client like while we were in the delivery room. Like, for folks that haven't been through, like, there is like a lot of excitement for a period, and then it kind of like calms down for a couple days and you're just dealing with it, right? So like, I wasn't signing like during the action, but from the delivery room, signed my first client and just tried to grow from there. But I kept it small really until kind of the spring of last year when I started growing a bit. So when we had a 1-year-old and we had a 2-year-old and an infant in the house, and kind of up until when my daughter was, I guess outside of the immediate infant stage, we started to get into a comfortable place where we had consistent childcare coverage, and there was an opportunity now for me to kind of start building the law firm a little bit more than I had, opportunity to do in the past. But there are a lot of first contract physicians that will make personal finance decisions that really just cut out that option. And like for me, being able to literally hang out with my kids whenever I want for those, that 2.5-year period, maybe almost 3-year period, when I kind of step back from the, full-time Harvey Specter style practice of law, I love that time and I would never want to give it back. So I don't know, that was just one of the realities of having kids and being a dual professional couple. Housing was a big one. We bought used cars. We don't have fancy cars. Our kids also destroy our cars. Like, I don't know how your kids do it. Like, I never have a clean car. I'm not great at keeping my car clean at baseline. Like, before I had kids and I was like a single guy, like that was one of the challenges. Like, oh, I'm on a date, I better clean my car. Like, I definitely don't want this to be the impression. So I'm not good at it at baseline.
That was one of my messy spots when my husband and I would negotiate. I'm like, I want my closet and I want my car. The rest I will do my very best to keep tidy, but I just can't. Kids just whole other level.
Yeah, with kids, it's just a nightmare. So I don't know. We were both kind of on the same page. Like, having a Tesla would be cool, but not going to keep it clean anyway. It'll probably destroy it. So we have used cars that we paid off. So we made the last payment, I think it was maybe a year ago now. So we didn't do it like right away, but we got the cars paid off. We had cheaper house, started building up a bit of a side fund. Part of it too was just funding, me stepping away from like full-time, full-speed work and being with the kids. I know it was tough on Allie to kind of continue more of like the full-time, work obligation. I kind of had that opportunity to stay back with the kids. But I will say this too, like, it's definitely easier working all day than handling infants all day. Like,
yes,
that's tough.
Yes, agreed completely. I appreciate medicine so much after I had kids, and then once again after I started my own business. I'm like, medicine is easy. Pish pash. This is hard.
I had the same experience too. Like, luckily I love what I do. I own my own law firm. I hire whoever I want. I take whatever clients I really want. Like, I have full control over my work product and when I work and how I work and all of that. Having that level of autonomy and control as a relatively early-ish career lawyer is very, very difficult to obtain. Luckily, with my wife's salary and being married to a full-time working physician with otherwise reasonable expenses, it allowed me the opportunity to build a law firm that I really love. Now I do work because it's exciting and I love it, and I love the service that we provide, and it's not like worky work, if you will. Like, it's something that I'm passionate about. So having control over your personal finances early on in your career can help you take back some of that autonomy and control that, I don't know, hopefully you don't have to give it up early career for a period, but if you do, or if one of you do, then you have a path to get it back.
Yeah, and I think that plays so much into what we were talking earlier about PSLF and all the financial things. If you live below your means, it gives you that option. And, just thinking long term, one of the things that I see in physicians is that a lot don't know how to evaluate a job, and they're picking the jobs that have the highest salary, which is not a bad thing to do. But to quote a financial advisor I interviewed once, he said the jobs with the highest salaries, those are probably a red flag. That high salary might be a red flag, and I see it time and time again. And and in the long term, you want to be in a position that you love and that you can keep working in forever, and giving yourself that option that if it becomes a practice that maybe isn't aligned with your values or isn't aligned with how you want to live your life, you want that flexibility to be able to move that. And if you're living above your means or right at your means or whatever financial level makes it so that you can't leave, that's probably not a good thing. And so, that all plays into it. And it's going to play into our next discussion, part 2, which is going to be that exit strategy and due diligence on, pre-ownership track and all of those things. So that is coming next time. But I do think it's so important as far as, personal finances, not just to think about what job's going to pay me the most year one, but to look at what that potential could be, and also what is that job. Take the money number out, and what does that job do to your long-term potential as a practicing physician? Because there are certain jobs I've been in that I would just leave. I actually did leave medicine entirely and happened to find my way back, but it's so important to think long-term, because medicine is awesome, and those of us who have started a business, Michael, know how hard it is. Like, it's really, really hard. And it's good. Like, I've grown and I love who I've become because of all these challenges that I've had to overcome. But it's not easy. And, we're going on a different tangent here, so I'll stop there. But,
no, it's true though. But like, tying into your point about like looking at compensation only, this is one of the big things that I like to touch on in initial evaluation discussions with first contract physicians. Sometimes they'll say, I got a great job, it gives me a $20,000 signing bonus and a $10,000 relocation stipend, and it pays me $300,000 a year. And it's like, I still don't really know anything of value yet, right? Like, I don't really know if the job is good or bad. We really have to compare the compensation to what you're required to do to obtain that compensation. Also, just like jobs that are out of whack, that require that provide you a lot of compensation, but maybe appear to not offer or require a lot of work obligations. That's kind of a red flag for me, because either they're not being completely truthful about the job, or that level of compensation compared to work obligations just isn't sustainable. It's going to change in the future. Or, I don't know, occasionally we see that in like some very rural, very challenging to fill positions, in rural practice for physicians. Okay, occasionally we'll see that. But usually there's a reversion to the mean for most jobs. Like, also if, we want to identify obviously jobs that pay you very little and work you a lot, and, maybe try to negotiate that or work around that, right? But there's usually some sort of connection between those two. So very rarely have first contract physicians found a job that are outside of the norms, what is normal for compensation compared to work obligations. So when you say that, it's like, okay, if you're being paid a lot to do a lot in a very like non-autonomous, controlled, like sacrificial type of way, is that what you want to do with your career? Or do you want to accept a lower salary potentially with another employer that may offer other advantages? I also say that your bigger financial risk, from my view, is moral injury burnout. Like, not being able to practice medicine for even a short period could wipe out any financial gains from a job that pays more. Like, it doesn't take that long of not having salary to wipe out any marginal advantage that one job has over another if you have to step away from it because it's miserable. And then, the signing bonus pieces, like the really sexy initial discussion pieces, right? Signing bonuses, those are fleeting. They usually have some sort of compensation clawback or waiver issue attached to them. They add to those golden handcuffs, make it difficult to change your mind, change jobs. make a transition if you pick the practice setting that you don't like or that isn't a fit for you, or you have a couple little kids and you realize you want to move back to your hometown, or whatever it is, it makes it difficult to execute those like career pivots. So yeah.
Yeah, and I know you work with physicians on what to do about those, because there's definitely things, I speak with a lot of docs who say, well, I can't leave because then I have to write a check back, or I did leave, but I had to write a check for $30,000, and who has $30,000 sitting around? And it sounds like you end up, this is more a question for you. Would you end up losing money because you get that $30,000 pre-tax and then you pay it back post-tax?
Yeah, so with compensation clawback provisions, like let's say you get paid $100,000 signing bonus, it's usually tied to 3 to 5 year commitment. Let's say you only serve 2 years of a 5-year commitment, what happens? Some will require you to pay back all $100,000 of that in full, plus an interest rate that is 2% over the prime interest rate, and the prime interest rate is really, really, really high right now. So that is going to add a significant financial burden to you. I see these in a lot of like the PE radiology contracts. They're totally wild, like the amount of money that they give you, but is also subject to clawback if you don't stick it out and do everything that they tell you to do for the entire period that they tell you to do it, is like staggering. It is wild. But let's say you have a 2-year, like you stayed for 2 years, but there's a 5-year clawback. Sometimes it's reduced prorated annually. So instead of paying back $100,000 in that situation, you pay back $60,000. I like to negotiate for that. I also like to negotiate for if the employer terminates without cause, that the clawback provision goes away. If they don't have room for you anymore, they overestimated their volume, or it's just not working out, but you didn't do anything for cause to be terminated, then I don't think you should have to pay that back. But the vast majority of physician contracts, the standard ones, will require you to pay it back in full. Very common negotiated point for us. But a discussion point on that is if you have some amount that you have to pay back to your employer upon exit, I encourage you to consider having them reduce your paychecks during your exit period and take it out pre-tax. So let's say you make $300,000 a year and you have a 6-month notice provision, okay, $150,000. Let's say you owe $60,000. Now, instead of making $150,000 minus taxes for the next 6 months, you're going to make $90,000 minus taxes for the next 6 months. If you planned out your personal finances thoughtfully to like navigate this problem, then your personal finances should still work under that math, and you can move on. If you have to pay it out post-tax, I'm not a CPA, okay, I'm not a tax lawyer, like go talk to your CPA or tax lawyer about this specifically. This is the discussion point. If you're in this situation though, you can pay it off and then request that it be a deduction on your taxes next year, but it's still money that has to come out of your account, and then you got to request a tax deduction on your next tax return. I don't know every detail about that, but it's enough to be like, you know what, that's kind of a pain. Maybe if you can resolve it before you leave, then you're in good shape. Sometimes it can be a negotiation. Depends on what your leverage points are. If the employer wants something from you upon exit, if there's something that you can do occasionally, very, very, very occasionally, we'll see some room to negotiate down the clawback provision upon exit. But I think that also applies, like if the employer wants you to pay some portion of your malpractice tail expense, that's probably also something that they could handle in-house and with pre-tax earnings. Yeah, so if you can resolve it before you leave, then do it, I guess. Yeah, for most people.
Well, that's good. And I think I hear a part 3 on exit strategy here. So part 3, exit strategy.
I'll be here.
Which will be coming after part 2, due diligence. All right.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for joining us. I definitely encourage any physicians watching this who need someone to look at their contract. I always recommend Michael because I think he's so awesome, and I know that he actually cares about us. He's on our side. And the funny thing is as we were jumping onto our call today, I was like, hold on, I just need to finish this email where I'm recommending that someone speak with you. So
that's really kind. I appreciate it. I
yeah.
appreciate your support. I appreciate like doing these chats and maybe bringing some authenticity to the experience that physicians are having, both trying to find their first job and transition between jobs. Like, it's not all roses all the time. Like, it can be if you do a good job, you plan out your personal finances accordingly, you know, you do a good job in your interview process and your due diligence, and you negotiate your contract, you understand what it means for your life, and you put a thoughtful plan forward for like what you're going to do during this next step of your life. It can be a lot of fun. It can be great. So, you know, I'm here to help. I know you're also here to help too, you know, help with just the process of finding the right fit. So many first contract physicians need that. So many folks transitioning between jobs know the value. So I encourage, if anybody is interested in that assistance, to reach out to you, because it's super helpful.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I really, really like helping doctors find amazing jobs. I mean, it's so satisfying. I was just speaking with a colleague this morning about just how satisfying it is, and you know, just kind of the situation we're in America with our healthcare system, and I'm sure many other countries, and just how it's like, it's so awesome to help doctors be happy. Like, it's just, I mean, it's my calling, you know, and I thank you for helping us as well, joining us on that journey.
Thank you.
So, Michael, what is your website in case anyone wants to reach you?
So reach out on michaeljohnsonlegal.com. I also own physiciancontracts.com, which has been under construction for like a year and a half. I've got to get it done. Like, it's really embarrassing, but you can also find me physiciancontracts.com. My main social is Instagram at Physician Contracts. I post a bunch of videos. There'll be one soon with me wearing exactly this that was created about an hour ago. But I post a bunch of videos and content just about physician contract stuff. So I'd love for folks to follow along. I'm also on LinkedIn. But yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And of course, if you're looking for a job or you need help navigating the whole process, please do reach out to me. My website is www.happydayhealth.co. I'd love to help you find something. If you're a practice, of course, I'd love to help you find a doctor. But I have such amazing practices that, you know, I definitely love finding the Cinderella for their gloss shoes, or their gloss shoe for their Cinderella, whatever it is. But
one of those.
It's fun. Yes, exactly. So reach out to us, and thank you so much for watching. And until part 2 and part 3, bye.
Thank you.
I help with every step of the way. Oops. I help with it. Oh, sorry. Here we go.
Kind of like that though. Like, you handled it appropriately, but